Hello, it's Lorelei with Radiate Life with Lorelei and Blooming Families and the Alchemy of Marketing and the Light Lifters Academy. And I'm here this morning. I wanted to give you a taste of something that woke me up the other morning. And because of the time and timing of what's been going on in the world, myself and like many other moms and spiritual teachers and spiritual leaders and mentors, it's all hands on deck. It's not only clearing the space within my own heart and within my own family with my kids and my husband and extended family, but also within my neighborhood and my neighbors and my community, and feeling the impact of the world. And anyone that's empathic and feeling, and gosh, all of us are really having these intense feelings, even if it's something you don't normally have. Can come in many ways. So anyway, what had happened is I've been doing a lot of clearing, and then I noticed kind of when I wake up in the morning that sometimes I do feel almost an anxiety, almost a rush of what's being experienced by everyone in the world. And so what it brought to me was this moment. It's kind of like if you wake up and there's like trains and cars and boats and airplanes just going from one end to the other, to the other, to the other. There's all this activity and looking like, where can I walk across the street, or where can I jump on that train, or where is it? And it feels like everything's moving so quickly, and there's really, here I am, and there's no way to enter it. And so what came to me in that moment was just the realization, right? The recognition, the appreciation that creation does not start in a vacuum, right? We would like to think that instant manifestation in our world at this time happens for everybody. The moment you share with somebody that they have creative potential in their life, dependent upon how they've grown themselves in this life, the choices that they've made, they can or cannot relate to that, right? And a lot of people are kind of in that in-between stage, meaning that they are beginning to see that there is more influence and, in fact, more direction, more leadership that they have for what happens in their life than they initially thought. Some people, this is going to continue to grow, and they're really going to see and feel and claim the power of their self-mastery. Some people are going to continue to have to kind of have their head above the water, then below the water, and then above the water through the process of life and what's being called forward for them. And there's going to be some people who are just going to remain where they've been and really fight with a lot of energy to try to maintain this status quo before 2020. And a lot of energy will go into trying to make things stay the same when everything around them is crumbling. I mean, there's so many different metaphors and ways to look at that. So I'll just leave it for that, right? They're either going to really move into and know that they can have self-mastery and go towards that and align with it and get there. There'll be some that are going to be kind of in and out and struggle, and things will be, they'll be able to move themselves forward, and maybe they'll go under the water a little bit and come back up, right? But this is part of that life cycle for them. And then there'll be just people who will be like, this is really all there is and all I have, and a lot of that resources will go towards that. I mean, it is the humanity and the inhumanity of what we have in our world. So it brings me back to waking up in the morning, seeing all these things moving and saying, how do I connect with this, with that awareness of knowing that we don't create in a vacuum. So it reminded me of what I teach my children and how we live together, and it's definitely how we've approached this emergency into an emergence for 2020. It's how we have cocooned ourselves and have come out the other side as butterflies, completely transformed, new tools moving forward. So for anybody that has never done any kind of concentrated specific work with either writing down your dreams and desires and goals, or you might have heard of a vision board. You may or may not have done it. There's so many things now that people are aware of, and yet there are different pieces that go into how you make that vision board. Again, I was reminded of when I started teaching, particularly metaphysics. I had graduated from college with my marketing degree. I really love to learn. And I hadn't really been introduced to the spiritual qualities of learning. Now, another way of saying spiritual is it might be your inner inspiration. It could also be your wanting to transform and enrich your experiences of life. This could also be you wanting to really flourish and make a difference in your life, in the life of your family, in the life of your community. It might be in the environment. It might be a difference in the environment and how we work with the environment. It could be how we sustain things. It could be renewable resources. It could be animals. It could be the air. It could be a lot of different things over time. And in my very first lecture, I called it Every Step We Take, and I had little tiny baby feet that I made out of construction paper in all different colors, and I posted them everywhere, and the posters that I put out in my community had this baby theme, and it was said every step we take. And so every step you take, and it came from my own inspiration. What had happened is that when I became a spiritual student and I started looking at the meaning of life and the deeper layers of life and what life was really about and what were the things that were more longer lasting, what was taught to me was that when you have something that you want, now it could be an ideal. So an ideal usually is something that is bigger than the resources you have. It's something that is going to stand the test of time. It's probably something that's going to last well beyond you and your life, or it's a family legacy, right? A goal it could be a simple goal like changing a habit into a healthy habit. It could be a new job, it could be education, it could be a new level of teaching, it could be developing a new method of painting, it could be developing a new outlet or resource or renewable, right? So it could be any of those things, but either it's an ideal or it's a goal. And then it's the purpose. So the purpose speaks to what will I have built within myself as I imagine I attain this thing, relationship, physical object, experience, emotion, connection, okay? And then the activity, of course, is that then we have to engage in activity for that. And I'm going to say when it comes to activity, there could be aligned activity, right? And then there can be out of alignment activity. Aligned activity would be thinking about, let's use a car, because that a lot of people can relate to that, and it's very, concrete. It has its qualities. Imagine being in the kind of car you want. Maybe it's a hybrid, and maybe it's a certain color, and maybe it's going to be a certain size to accommodate you, yourself, your family, whoever. And you imagine yourself driving it, and you feel the feeling, and you see yourself on the road, and you have 10 minutes. See if you can stay in that moment for 10 minutes. And you're feeling how good you feel when you go to recharge that car, and you're not spending that money on gas, because you notice every time you go to fill it up that you're charging your car, right? Or you just feel the freedom and the responsibility that you've taken for the footprint that you leave. And I can feel my energy rising as I say this, all right? So that is aligned activity. And with that vision in mind, then I'm going to take the steps in order to receive that. Okay. Now, unaligned activity would be like, okay, I'm going to a family get together and I say, oh, by the way, I'm very excited and I went and test drove this hybrid car. And then immediately, or not too far along, someone in my environment, someone in my family or circle or around me begins telling me things like, oh, I had one, my friend had a friend that had one and it, you know, I'm going to tell you it didn't work, or they were really sad they got it, or, oh, you don't have the money, you'll never get it. And so then I'm in my moment of wanting to have my vision, and now I'm sharing it with people, and then it's unaligned. I could, in that moment when people are saying that, I could choose to still be in that moment. I may or may not say something. It's up to me. It's my vision. Whether or not I allow what they have to say or what other people do to influence me. So here I am in my car at the family get together. I'm excited, the wind blowing in my hair, and I'm feeling really good and the energy is high like I am. And I'm noticing, I'm hearing some of the other people that are saying different things, and I'm not even gonna go into why they may or may not be saying it. I'm noticing it. If I go into why they may or may not be saying that, then actually I'm contributing the quality of judgment to what I'm wanting to manifest. And gosh, I don't want to do that. I mean, if I do and I notice it, it's good, because then I'm like, okay, then I've valued what they say over what I say. And another way without the judgment is you can just really understand and have compassion for people in this way, where it's like, realize that we all walk around with VR glasses on, right? I love that metaphor, right? It's true, because it's really not just a metaphor, it's how we experience life. I'm experiencing my life, my vision, my thoughts. It's a holographic world. That other person is experiencing theirs. So when they start saying things to me about, I'm not gonna get this, and it's whatever they wanna say, I can also have the awareness that in their world, what they're saying to me is really how they feel about themselves. And what they say is about them, really not about me. And I can choose to make it about me and argue with it and try to make them stop and try to control them, but that's their beliefs. This is what they're thinking and saying. And again, it's not like there's right or wrong. Sometimes we'll speak up, sometimes we won't. But as long as we're aligned with what we're doing and why, we can still be aligned in our creation. Now, life is about being aligned and unaligned all the time. And the idea isn't to be perfect. The idea is to be aware, it's to be focused, and the gap between when we are aligned and then we move out of alignment and then come back in aligned, it's that gap. Being aligned, out of aligned, coming back. Coming back to the gap. So I just want to reinforce that we don't create in a vacuum. So if you have a blank piece of paper or you have a canvas, you can, if you wanted to, right, literally start painting. When it comes to life, just realize there are other factors that are at work or at a part of that can either help or can resist what it is that you're wanting to create. And if this is new to you, then it would be really important, of course, to start with you, start with what it is you want, whether it's an ideal or a goal, and then purpose. Remember, what is it going to be built? How am I going to feel? That's going to be built within me. Now and then the activity to follow through. And I'm going to follow through with the aligned actions until what it is that I've said and I'm visualizing and aligning with actually comes true. And I have found, especially now in many cases, what happens is there are many desires that I have that come together in one experience. And it's like the universe brought in all these little qualities. It's like a menu. I'm checking this, I want this ingredient and that ingredient and that ingredient, and it comes together in the most amazing way. And it's usually after it's happened that I go back and check off that list, or my partner and I check off our list. I'm like, you know what? Remember, we wanted this, and we wanted this, and we wanted this. That all came together in this experience, all right? So I'll leave you with this. And again, this comes from when I started teaching metaphysics, and some of the first lessons were in manifesting, right? So first of all, I'm just going to say this jar has seeds on the bottom. So that's when you're creating something that you want, imagine that it's a seed. And if you're going to plant a watermelon seed, you're going to grow a watermelon. Okay, so that's the kind of confidence you have in what you want, the clarity of what you want. If you're able to say, yes, the metaphor is, I want a watermelon and I have planted a watermelon seed. I'm going to go through the creation process and I will indeed receive the fruits of my labor and share them with my family and my friends. And the other thing is I have pieces of paper, and each piece of paper, what I've written on is a seed, right? It's something that I want, an ideal or a goal. It could be a quality, it could be a physical thing. And then I have little reminders in here that I take out. Some are things that remind me what I manifest. Some remind me of a creative potential, and that's what I've done. So I've created a jar, and I'll be doing more with this, but I just wanted to kind of give you, this is one of the ways that I actually use things around me and remind me and work with it every day. Now, I want to leave you with this, and that is that the purpose helps you understand, like in the example of a car, you buy a brand new hybrid car, you've wanted it, it's beautiful, it's gorgeous, you drive it off the lot, it is no longer at its highest potential, right? Highest potential, it's made, it's sparkly, it's new, it's never really, not been owned by anybody, you're the first original owner, you get it. The only thing that car can do from then on, unless you like enhance it or modify it, is going to begin to diminish the quality, the engine, and everything. And that's fine. That's exactly what happens with manifestation. It reaches its peak. Think of a flower. You plant the seed. It grows to the point where it has a bud. That bud fully flourishes and it releases a beautiful fragrance. And then what happens? It begins to go back into that unmanifest and come back to earth and potential energy once again. So you manifest the car, and when you have that purpose of, I set my bar higher to help the environment, this is the kind of car I wanted, I received what it is that I wanted, and I feel amazing. And every time I drive it, I feel amazing. Every time I think about it, and every time I share it with other people, every time I'm able to share with other people my story about what I created and how it felt within me, and I carry it, I'm helping other people as well, inspiring them. So, if you don't create a purpose, then what happens is, and we've seen it, it's that waves and waves of consumerism, right? Which is the shopping, it's the bigger and more and better. And what happens is it really, it blooms and becomes something really over the top, way beyond what our needs are, way beyond what our wants are. And because in that particular instance, we don't know what it is that is going to be built within us. We think that it's going to be other people's admiration of us, or it's going to be, I have the most of something in this environment, right? And when you create it as a purpose, it gives you the freedom to either have that or no longer have it. So when you're driving your car and you get your first scratch, you're like, you know what? It's a scratch. It's going to happen. Versus feeling like some part of you has been lost, or if something happens to that car, it's no longer there. You still feel fulfilled because you created a purpose. I want to end with saying that I was a systems specialist, training specialist, for Hewlett-Packard after I graduated from college. And I worked with somebody who was an IT programmer, and she wanted to run a marathon, and I traveled with her. And so when we traveled, she was always out training, and I felt like I was curious about this. I had never set that same desire, even though I was very athletic, but I wanted to support her in her journey. And it was really exciting, and I kept up to date and how her planning was going and what she was going to do. And I'd never been close to anybody who had done that before. And then she has the race, and the day of the race, and she takes off an extra day of work to recover. And I remember going into her, I can smell her office, you know, cubicle, and what it feels like to sit down in there. And I'm like, I sat down and I'm super excited. I'm like, okay, so tell me, how was it? And I looked at her, and she was not as excited as I was. She was actually a little depleted. And I'd asked her, I'm like, well, how are you different? And she's like, I don't know. I had a goal. I wanted to do it. I was really excited about doing it. But now that I've accomplished it, I'm feeling kind of empty inside. And I had already been studying and teaching metaphysics. And I'm like, wow, that is so classic, right? And after that, you know, she'd found some programs, and, you know, we talked about purpose, and she'd actually found some programs that did teach her that ideal purpose and activity. So then she began to have more fulfillment with the things that she was creating. But it was really an eye-opener for me to really drive home that point that you could actually have something that you put a lot of time and attention in. But it's putting that same time and attention in who you are as a person. There's so many lessons, there's so many things that you could decide you're going to use in that experience. Like, number one for me is just the amazing power of when I set my mind to do something, I can do it. It's like every time you go to run and train, you know that you're training for this huge physical feat, and you break it down into running every day. Now, can I see the connection to what I'm doing every day as being really significant and very powerful? Because in the end, all these little runs are going to elevate my body and mind and spirit, right? Because how much of that marathon was mental? A lot of it, probably more than 50%. And so I'm going to use that, all of me, to accomplish that goal, and will have reached a new pinnacle. And then when I'm at that pinnacle, I'm gonna look and see what I want to do. Maybe I want to inspire other people to race. You know, maybe I'm going to take that same quality in me and put a program together, or, you know, volunteer somewhere. You know, I'm going to take that energy, I'm going to parlay it into the next thing, and I'm going to fulfill myself more and more. So that's why purpose is so important, how I'm going to be different from this experience, rather than having, you know, a string of physical thing after physical thing after physical thing. So the power is in you and your purpose, and it comes together. Okay, plant your seeds, water them, focus on what you want, and just know it is a combination of you and also our environment coming together. But you do you, and the next step will be, how do you work within your environment?